Hey guys, how's it going? So UFC Fight Night Blanchfield versus Barber just wrapped up, and geez, do I have some thoughts for this card, so let's just jump straight into it. So first up and opening the prelims was Rayanne dos Santos versus Ardelean. So I said that Rayanne dos Santos was going to take this one. I thought it was going to be by a decision. It did go to a decision, but Ardelean ended up winning this one, and it was decently good. Round 1 opens up. Ardelean is trying to hold the center of the octagon. She did this for most of the fight, and she's landing these straights and jab combos, but nothing really outside of that. Dos Santos is actually coming off better at the start of round 1. She's sort of entering distance and landing heavy shots in combination. But despite that, as the round goes on, Ardelean starts mixing it up. She starts landing heavier shots that are landing and doing more damage. She's making the round close, and I'd argue that the first round was leaning towards her. Second round, both fighters are landing big shots on each other in their respective combinations, but like last round, Ardelean is just landing them more often. She's holding the center, she's pushing Dos Santos back the whole time. We saw Dos Santos shoot a few takedowns this round, which Ardelean denied all of them, even reversed one, but they got quickly back to the feet, and overall, I think Ardelean definitely won this round. Dos Santos looked good at the end of the round, but she was sort of not really doing enough to justify taking that one either. Round 3, early in the round, Dos Santos looks the best she has the whole fight. She's dazing Ardelean with some big shots, sending her off balance, even managing to push her backwards, and she sort of started being on the front foot, taking the center of the octagon. And while this was Dos Santos' best round, both fighters were too tired to really land anything fight-ending, and considering Dos Santos lost the past 2 rounds, she kind of needed that. Couldn't get it done. Overall, Ardelean takes that one by unanimous decision, and this one was actually a pretty fun fight. They both put it all on the table. It was a pretty scrappy fight. Both of them took some real damage in that one. So yeah, great way to start the card. Next up is what was supposed to be Markel Medeiros versus Bolaji. Last minute change of opponents. It's now Bolaji versus Michael Aswell. I said that I was going to stick with Bolaji by decision. I thought he was just more experienced, a bit better, versus some guy off the Contender Series on 5 days notice, and I was correct. Bolaji took this one by a decision. Breaking down the fight, round 1, Aswell is throwing a lot of feints. He comes out very fast, sort of moving his hands a lot, throwing everything now and there, but Bolaji stayed composed. He sort of weathered the storm, got out of any punches, or sort of never let himself get backed against the cage. He was tripping a lot in this fight, which was weird. Like, even at the start, he threw a calf kick and he tripped on that, which was kind of strange. But either way, Aswell looked decent throughout that first round. He was landing here and there, but Bolaji was landing the bigger shots. He was landing these big counter punches that were sort of causing Aswell to back up whenever he'd push in. And he even got him against the cage a few times, and Bolaji would mix it in with his own sort of jab and straights. Round 2, Oki's mixing it up even more. He's landing counters, but also kicking at the body and legs of Aswell. But this is a way better round for Aswell. He's landing more and more and just landing with impact. Oki is just keeping on the pressure this round, though, pushing forward and landing his own shots, having Aswell up against the cage for the last minute of the fight. He's sort of doing circles in that last minute. In round 3, clearest round for Oki. Oki just walked Aswell down. I think Aswell gassed out a little bit, and yeah, Aswell just took so many punches in that round, didn't really throw much back. Oki took it by a decision in a pretty good fight, but Oki did look way bigger in that one as well. And once again, it was on a 5-day notice fighter from the Contender Series. So, good win, but not the best of opponents. Moving on from that, we had Holobaugh versus Jordan Leavitt. So I said that Jordan Leavitt was going to get it done by a decision. I thought it was going to be a lot closer than it was in the wrestling, but I was actually correct with that one. Jordan Leavitt won this one. He did it by a first round submission though, and he made it look pretty easy. So round 1 opens up, and immediately Leavitt shoots in and gets a takedown with relative ease, and very quickly maintains side control, gets the back, and with 2 minutes into the fight, he locks in this anaconda choke and just puts Holobaugh to sleep. There's not much to say in this fight. Holobaugh didn't really do anything, and Leavitt sort of just steamrolled him. And Leavitt's wrestling is no joke. It's unfortunate they got put up against people like Paddy, and there was someone else who's Chase Hooper. He kind of gets put up against these wrestlers that make his wrestling look not amazing, but he showed here against Holobaugh, who is a good wrestler, that he has the grappling credentials. Good win for Leavitt, man. Yeah, really good performance from him. Next fight. And next up is what was supposed to be Trevin Giles versus Andreas Gustafsson. Trevin Giles fell over and split his head open or something at the weigh-ins, so that fight got called off. This card has been incredibly cursed. We'll get to that. And speaking of cursed, Jafel Filho versus Allan Nascimento. Nascimento missed weight going into this. I said that Jafel Filho was going to win this one by a round 3 submission. I was wrong. Nascimento won this one by a decision win. Let's break it down. Round 1, Nascimento's using his height advantage very early on in the fight. He's using these kicks to the legs of Filho to sort of create distance, but Filho very quickly runs in and holds him up against the cage, sort of neutralizing this height advantage. And on the cage, Filho easily takes down Nascimento, which is weird because Nascimento looked way bigger this fight. And then for a good portion of this round, he just sat on top control and kept threatening this triangle choke. With some ground and pound in between. It returns to the feet, but Filho drags Nascimento back down and takes the back actually. He almost gets a rear naked choke and then flips Nascimento over to try and secure a triangle. And then at the end of the round, when Nascimento is trying to get up, Filho locks in this one-armed guillotine, which looked pretty tight. I thought he was going to tap for a bit, but anyway, the bell goes off, Nascimento gets up, round 2, and Filho instantly looks way better on the feet. He looked better pretty much for the whole fight on the feet, and he starts pushing Nascimento back up against the cage, getting him on the ground very quickly. But it's here that on the ground Filho gets reversed when attempting a rear naked choke, and this is where we really start seeing Nascimento show moments in the grappling. He was trying to get a triangle, but Filho was constantly sort of managing to slip out, and he was pretty safe on bottom position. And it was very obvious that Nascimento won this round. He just kind of sat on top position for the whole round, making it 1 apiece going into the third. And in the third, Filho comes out the strongest he's been sort of the whole fight on the feet, and he's really tagging Nascimento. Nascimento shoots in and it gets reversed, but he ends up getting his back taken. And Nascimento ends up flipping the position and sitting on top position for the rest of the round. Filho tries to get back to the feet. He almost gets caught in a neck crank as he's trying to stand up. And when he does get to the feet, Nascimento just pulls him back down again and holds him in a dominant position. Fight ends, goes to Nascimento. Unfortunate because Filho looked a lot better this fight in my opinion. Just from a grappling perspective, Nascimento was kind of heavier and he just kind of sat on him and threatened a triangle the whole fight, borderline. Yeah, but either way, he won that one. But man, Filho, after this fight, he might be one of my favourite grappling prospects because he looked really, really good in this fight. But yeah, next fight on the card. Now we move on to the main card. We start off with Zachary Reese versus Dusko Todorovic. So, I said that Zachary Reese was going to get this done by around 1 KO. I just saw that Dusko was a bit too chinny, and his only real wins were over people who gassed themselves out. And it's funny that I say that because that almost happened here, but Zachary Reese took this one by a decision win, so I was correct there. Round 1, almost instantly in the round, Todorovic just takes down Reese and almost locks in a guillotine, which he holds for a long time. He sort of gets back to the feet, but Reese still has his head locked into this guillotine, and Todorovic is sort of yanking his neck around, trying to control him again back down to the ground to finish it. But either way, Reese gets out, and even on the ground, so most of this first round was grappling, Reese looked horrible. Apparently he's been working on his grappling, but the whole round he was just giving up bottom position and putting himself in these bad positions where, especially when he was in that guillotine, he almost got submitted multiple times within the first sort of 2 minutes of the fight. And he gassed out very quickly because of this wrestling. At the end of the round, it does get back to the feet, but Todorovic quickly takes him down again. Absolute domination on the ground for the first round for Todorovic, obvious round for him. Round 2, within the opening seconds of the round, he tags Todorovic pretty bad and is clearly getting the better in the striking, landing the biggest sort of shots of the round. Todorovic is consistently preventing Reese from striking by holding him up against the cage and manages to even take Reese down in the last minute of the fight. But in the last 20 seconds, Reese gets back up to the feet and tags Todorovic decently hard, securing that round most likely just through damage, but it wasn't as dominant as it could have been. Round 3 opens up, and while Todorovic is getting tagged with big shots and not really throwing anything back, the striking from Reese isn't really as crazy as it was in his previous fights. I couldn't really see a knockout coming, and Reese is visibly gassed, probably from the wrestling earlier. Later in that round, Todorovic starts out performing Reese in the striking. He cuts him open with a stiff jab, and for some reason Reese shoots him for takedowns, despite the fact that in the first 2 rounds he almost lost through the wrestling. But overall, Zachary Reese ends up taking the decision, but his wrestling was absolutely horrible in this fight, and he didn't look amazing in the striking later in the fight either. It was a pretty bad fight for him. Todorovic isn't the most difficult opponent, so yeah, I'm a bit mixed with this one. But yeah, next fight on the card. Next up is Ketlen Vieira versus Maycee. So I said that Maycee was going to take this one by a decision win. I just thought she'd be better in the striking, and in the grappling I thought she'd be able to hold her own. It was actually Ketlen Vieira that won this one by a decision. Pretty boring fight, not the most amazing performance from either of them. And round one, first thing I noticed is that it was changed to a featherweight bout, and I hate this. They both looked very slow, neither of them really did much. And it's actually the first time I've actually seen a women's fight get moved to featherweight, so there's that. Jason is constantly moving around in the start of the round. She's sort of letting Vieira hold the center, but blitzing in and winning the combos every now and then, but not really doing much. She was landing nice though whenever she would blitz in, but Vieira was also pushing forward, landing big counters on Jason, with one halfway through the round that sort of threw her off balance and stumbled her over a little bit. And with around 2 minutes left, Vieira starts landing a flurry of blows and punches on Jason, big ones as well. Got up into the cage and cage clinched her for a bit. And yeah, Vieira won that round pretty clearly. Round 2, Jason instantly shoots in for a takedown, which she ends up falling on. She sort of falls forward and hits her head, and then ends up in bottom position somehow, with Vieira pressuring her with a triangle, sort of trying to lock in this triangle the whole round. And while there were multiple points where Jason attempted to get back to the feet, she just ended up being held on bottom for the whole round. She was trying to do some damage with elbows from bottom, but wasn't doing really anything. She sort of let that round fly away from her, and she was losing 2 rounds, which meant she had to try and find a finish in the third. Third round, Jason comes out very aggressive to start the round. She starts sort of throwing these knees, these elbows, these hooks, just pushing Vieira up against the cage. But once she gets her up against the cage, she shoots in for a takedown for some reason. And the same thing happens last round. She ends up giving up bottom position, getting reversed, and just Vieira sits on her the whole round. In the last sort of moments of the fight, she was sort of dealing damage with elbows from bottom, even cut Vieira open at a point. No real damage. In the last 20 seconds, they did get back to the feet, and Jason just starts chasing Vieira down, trying to throw anything she can at her to win the fight by a finish, but obviously it's not there. They're both very gassed. It goes to Vieira by decision, but it was a pretty dull performance from both fighters. Yeah, not much else to say with that one. Next fight. Next up, we had Dustin Jacoby versus Bruno Lopes. So I said that Dustin Jacoby would take this one. I said by a decision win. I was actually wrong. He did win this one, but it was by a first round KO, which I didn't really expect. He looked really, really good in this fight. And this was probably one of his better performances throughout his career. And to break it down, round 1, very low volume to start the round. Jacoby's very, very patient. We don't usually see him this patient in his fights. Usually he's trying to push the pace. Here he was sort of on the back foot, circling around the octagon, while Lopes was sort of chopping away at his front leg with kicks. But very quickly in the fight, Jacoby hits Lopes with a straight jab that just drops him. It was really weird. It didn't really look like anything crazy, but it must have done a bit of damage, because Lopes drops down to his knees, gets back up very quickly, and Jacoby runs in to try and get a finish, but ends up in a cage clinch with Lopes. But he breaks off the clinch, starts swinging wildly at Lopes against the cage, and as Lopes begins to slowly slump down, Jacoby starts wailing on him and just puts him out with a good flurry of punches. Very, very good performance from Jacoby, and I expect to see him fight in around top 15 area soon. After this performance, I think he definitely deserves that. He made Bruno Lopes look like a non-threat this fight. And yeah, this was probably one of the better fights on the card. Next fight. Next up, we had Billy Ray Goff versus Ramiz Brahimaj. So I said that Billy Ray Goff was going to win this one. I thought it was going to be by decision. I just saw Brahimaj as too finishable, or like not even finishable in this case, but just too easy to sort of get a one-up on and beat down on. And I thought Billy Goff's performance was going to be sort of full pressure. I was actually wrong. Ramiz Brahimaj got a first-round submission in this fight, which is probably one of his craziest finishes yet. Round 1 opens up, and Goff was a lot more patient than we usually see him, and as a result he got pushed up against the cage pretty quickly and taken down very, very early in the fight. When returning to the feet against the cage, Brahimaj takes the back of a standing Goff and then tries to lock in this rear naked choke, but then ends up getting clinched against the cage himself. And while in that clinch, Goff starts trying to shoot him for takedowns for some reason. He's a decent wrestler, but I wouldn't go with that with Brahimaj, because Brahimaj is probably better than him when it comes to the submissions and wrestling. And we saw it here, because Goff sticks his head in and gets caught with a ninja choke that has Goff out cold. Goff goes out very, very quickly. It was a very surprising win for Brahimaj. He's not that great in my opinion, but this was a very, very dominant performance. And he was showing off his submission ability here to its highest extent. I mean, I didn't really expect Goff to get submitted this quick. But yeah, I don't know, not much else to say about this one. Brahimaj, good win for him. Next fight on the card. And now we finally reach the co-main event, Mateusz Gamrot versus Ludovit Klein. Now I said that Mateusz Gamrot was going to take this one by a decision win. I thought this was a bit too well rounded. I thought this was a bit of a jump up for Ludovit Klein, and I think Gamrot is pretty tough competition, especially for someone who isn't even in the top 15. And I was correct, Gamrot won by a decision. Ludovit put up a good fight, but we'll break it down. Round 1, Gamrot's striking improves every fight he's in, and it's very clear that in this fight, his striking is just like amazing. He's pretty well rounded. Before he used to be known as someone of a grappler, but I'd say he's very, very well rounded. He was sort of blitzing in, throwing these combinations that would sort of graze Klein or maybe skim past his head. Nothing great though. Klein was really only throwing kicks from distance that landed occasionally, or a jab or a straight every now and then. And around halfway through the round, Gamrot shot his first takedown that Klein almost denies, but Gamrot swivels around and completes it, takes it back at Klein, and from there Gamrot just holds Klein against the cage. He starts nailing to the body with knees, which I think actually ended up adding up, especially in that third round. And he was kicking out the legs from under Klein whenever he'd try and get up. He secured that round very evidently. Round 2, very early in the round, Gamrot gets Klein on the bottom position through pulling his legs out from under him. And from top position, Gamrot was just staying busy, landing nice ground and pound, consistently threatening the triangle choke. In the last 30 seconds, they did return to the feet where Gamrot was sort of keeping distance while Klein was throwing these wild kicks to try and take back the round. He kept throwing this head kick that never really landed. Landed once, I think, but didn't really do anything substantial. But either way, he couldn't get this round done. At 2-0 Gamrot, moving into the third. And Klein started to look a lot better on the third, especially in the striking. It was pretty even, if not Klein just slightly edging it out. But Gamrot was doing also decent on the feet. And Klein was defending some more of Gamrot's takedowns. Yeah, I think he defended 2 or 1. And he almost clipped Gamrot with a knee when he dived in. And while Gamrot is sort of throwing back, Klein's landing these big head kicks, powerful straights to the body, mixing it up a lot. But in the end, both fighters are very tied. Gamrot secures a single leg very, very easily and just sort of holds position on top. He trips over Ludovit Klein and just sits on top of him for the remaining minute and a half of the round. He was also nailing Klein with some nasty ground and pound, especially at the end. Gamrot takes a decision. Really good performance from Gamrot, with his striking looking good and really him becoming a very well-rounded fighter. Hopefully he can find an opponent in the top 10, if not even the top 5 at this point. I wouldn't even mind a Paddy the Pimblett matchup, or even just slightly below, but, you know, whatever. Klein, on the other hand, pretty rough matchup for him. He was clearly outmatched here against a way high-ranked opponent, but he did put up a very, very good fight, and I do think that he will continue to sort of make his name in this division and even make the top 15 one day. But yeah, very fun fight, probably one of the better ones on the whole card, and we'll move on. And now we arrive at the main event, Erin Blanchfield versus Maycee Barber. I said that Maycee Barber was going to win this one, but turns out it doesn't even matter because it didn't even end up happening. Literally arrived at the stadium, they got their hand trapped, Erin Blanchfield was about to walk out, and then the commentating team received news that Maycee Barber suffered a medical sort of thing backstage. She couldn't fight. Unfortunate. Later in an interview, Erin Blanchfield did sort of say it was a seizure. I don't know if she was just guessing or if she received news of that, but I do think it probably was something like that. Maycee Barber has had to pull out of a lot of her fights because of medical reasons. It happened with Rose Namajunas, I'm pretty sure. It happened the first time that Erin Blanchfield and her were supposed to fight ages ago. And it's just something that's been sort of haunting her whole career. Yeah, I can't say anything about the fight because it didn't happen. Erin Blanchfield, she said that she's not going to wait around for Barber again. Fair enough. She's kind of too volatile. Reminds me of Tatiana Suarez a bit. Just sort of, you can never really match make for them because you never know when they're going to be in a condition to fight. So for that reason, I think Erin Blanchfield should move on. Maybe an Alexa Grasso would be kind of nice. Man and Filho rematch, maybe. But I like the idea of a Grasso. Maybe a 3-round co-main for Guadalajara, depending on what that's looking like, or Texas now, I suppose. But 320, maybe the co-main with Alexa Grasso, or maybe even lower 3-round, or even a 5-round fight night. That would be pretty good. As for Barber, she needs to fight lower. There's nothing really above there for her. Number 6th ranked is Jasmine Jasudavicius. I don't think she should fight her. I think Jasudavicius should sort of fight higher, maybe Filho. So I think the perfect matchup would be sort of rebook that Rose Namajunas matchup against Maycee Barber. It fell out. Let's try and rebook it in the future. Rose doesn't turn around that quickly. I think she actually has a fight sometime soon, but after that, sort of in maybe a year or so time, try and rebook that. But yeah, uneventful end to this event. Yeah, guys, so that's it. That was UFC Fight Night Blanchfield versus Barber, or I guess it probably should have been renamed to Gamrot versus Klein, I guess. Yeah, this was a shit show of a card. Let's see how we did. I got 56% of my predictions on who would win correct, but there's a bit of weird sort of numbers there because half the fights got called off, so it's probably going to be a bit lower, but who knows. And of those fights, I got 40% of the methods correct, mainly just the decision, Gamrot decision. I mean, who would have guessed that? Cam did a lot less good. He got 34% of his predictions correct. Where would this card go? I think it's pretty obvious. Bottom of D tier. I'm not even going to try and lie. It was probably one of the worst cards. The performances were decent here and there, but nothing amazing. There were the occasional moments. I mean, Jacoby had his moment, first round KO. Brahimaj had a pretty big upset. That was pretty cool. Gamrot, Ludovit, Klein, fun fight. You know, there was the occasional sprinkle of decent in there, but the main event got cancelled off. All of the other fights borderline got cancelled off. Trevor Giles had to pull out. Mateusz had to pull out. There were so many cancellations. Nascimento missed weight. Like, this card was cursed from the jump. Yeah, so, yeah. Next week, 316, a lot better. Thank God. Yeah, I'll see you there. Bye-bye!